The darkness of space stretched endlessly, silent and unbroken, until the black ship returned. Its surface was matte and cold, swallowing starlight like an ancient wound that refused to heal. To those who saw it through their scanners, it wasn't just another warship drifting through the void. It was a ghost of history, a relic from a time when Earth itself had burned. They called it the Immortal, though no one really knew why. Some said it was because no battle had ever claimed it. Others whispered it was because those who commanded it were never truly gone. The transmission that announced its reappearance was short, just a string of coordinates and a voice distorted beyond recognition. But for the veterans of the old wars, it was enough to make their blood run cold. They remembered that voice. It belonged to Earth's Fury, the legendary commander who led humanity's final stand a century ago. Officially, he had died with his ship in the Battle of Orion Gate. Unofficially, stories said the black ship had vanished into the rift, where time twisted and refused to let the dead stay buried. And now, the Immortal was back, its signal pulsing with eerie precision, as if it had been waiting for someone to answer. Across the solar frontier, outposts and fleets picked up the transmission. Governments scrambled, mercenaries armed themselves, and scavenger crews set their courses toward the coordinates. Some went for curiosity, others for power, but everyone wanted the same thing: to uncover what the black ship carried and whether Earth's Fury still lived. On the mining colony of Tarsus 9, a small crew gathered inside a rusted hangar, listening to the repeating signal echo through their comms. The sound was low and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The captain, a man with weathered hands and a scar running down his neck, stared at the holographic map glowing in front of him. "That ship isn't supposed to exist," he muttered, his voice low. "They buried everything about it after the War of Silence." The mechanic looked up from a console, her hands smudged with grease. "If it's really the Immortal, then we're staring at the last piece of Earth's lost fleet. That thing could change everything: power, technology, history." The captain didn't reply. He remembered stories told by soldiers who had fought under Earth's Fury, tales of the black ship moving through enemy lines like a shadow, unstoppable, untouchable. Some said its weapons were powered by something not entirely human. Others claimed the ship itself was alive. But the thing that haunted most veterans was the sound it made when it entered battle, the low, thunderous hum that felt almost like a heartbeat. Now that sound had returned. Meanwhile, deep within the command halls of the Terran Union, high-ranking officials met behind sealed doors. The news of the black ship's reappearance had thrown their fragile alliances into panic. If Earth's Fury, or whatever commanded that vessel, was truly alive, it could rewrite the balance of power across human space. Some wanted to destroy it before it woke. Others wanted to seize it, but none could ignore it. Back on Tarsus 9, the captain's crew prepared their small freighter for departure. The journey toward the rift was long and dangerous, and most who entered never returned. Still, something in that message called to them. The captain didn't know why, but he felt as though the voice wasn't just a signal. It was a summons, a whisper from the past, asking him to remember what humanity once was. As they left orbit, the stars seemed to stretch and twist, bending around them like reflections in water. For a moment, everything was silent. Then the hum returned, faint but steady. It wasn't coming from their ship. It was coming from somewhere ahead, growing louder the closer they got. Days passed in tense quiet. The crew spoke little, each of them aware that they were heading toward a place most believed cursed. The rift wasn't on any official chart. It was an ancient scar in space where gravity folded in impossible ways, where entire fleets had vanished. But as their sensors began to detect faint energy signatures, the captain knew they were getting close. The black ship appeared suddenly, rising out of the dark like a mountain of steel and shadow. It was enormous, larger than any known warship, and yet it moved with unnatural grace, drifting in silence. Its hull bore no markings, no lights, just streaks of burn scars and a faint pulse beneath the surface, as if the metal itself was alive. The crew fell silent. Even the hum of their own engines seemed to fade. The captain could barely breathe. "That's it," he whispered. "The Immortal." They moved closer, scanners struggling to read the ship's surface. Energy levels fluctuated, interference spiking as though the black ship didn't want to be seen. Then, through the static, the voice returned. Calm, commanding, and unmistakably human. "You've come far," it said. "But the war is not over. Earth still calls." The crew exchanged stunned looks. The mechanic froze, whispering, "That voice! It's him! It's Earth's fury!" Before they could respond, the black ship's engines roared to life. Space around them warped, dragging their small vessel into its gravitational wake. Systems screamed, alarms blaring as the black ship's massive hangar opened like a mouth of darkness. The captain tried to steer away, but it was useless. Their ship was being pulled inside. Inside the hangar, the air shimmered with static energy. Rows of ancient drones hung suspended, still and silent. The black ship's interior was colder than ice, yet it felt awake. Lights flickered along the corridors, and faint whispers echoed through the metal walls, like memories caught between worlds. The captain stepped out cautiously, the others close behind. "This ship shouldn't be running," he muttered. "Not after 100 years." Then they saw it. A control chair at the center of the command deck, surrounded by flickering holograms. And in that chair sat a figure, motionless but intact. His armor bore the insignia of Earth's final defense fleet. His face was pale, preserved, his eyes closed as if he had simply fallen asleep. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the deck. One of the crew reached out toward the console. The moment their hand touched it, the figure's eyes snapped open, glowing faintly with a light that wasn't human. "Who wakes the fury of Earth?" he asked, his voice low but filled with authority. The crew stumbled back, shock freezing them in place. The captain took a step forward, trying to speak, but the man, if he could still be called that, was already rising from the chair. The air trembled as systems across the ship came alive, lights flickering on one by one. Outside, the stars shifted. The Immortal was no longer adrift. It was awakening. And as its engines roared for the first time in a century, a pulse spread across the void, strong enough to reach every listening station, every colony, every hidden corner of human space. The message was clear, simple, and terrifying. Earth's fury has returned. The captain stared through the viewport as the black ship turned toward the stars. Whatever was coming next, humanity would not be ready. And somewhere deep within the ship, the voice spoke again. Calmer now, but filled with purpose. "War never ends. It only sleeps. Now, it's time to wake the legends." Then the signal cut to black. Silence hung in the air after the transmission ended, but it wasn't the silence of peace. It was the silence that comes before everything changes. The captain stood on the deck of the black ship, staring out into the endless stars. His crew was still trying to process what they had seen, what they had heard. The figure calling himself Earth's Fury had vanished into the shadows of the command bridge, leaving behind only the faint hum of power echoing through the walls. The ship seemed to breathe around them, as if it was aware of their presence. They had entered the Immortal as explorers. Now they weren't sure if they were guests or prisoners. The mechanic knelt near a panel, her hands trembling slightly as she studied the glowing circuits that pulsed like veins. "This technology," she whispered, "it's nothing like what we have now. The systems are too advanced. It's as if the ship rebuilt itself." The captain glanced at the console before them. The symbols flickered between familiar Terran script and something far older. He couldn't shake the feeling that the ship was watching them, learning from their every move. "It's adapting," he muttered, "or remembering." They moved deeper into the ship, guided by faint lights that seemed to appear just ahead of them, illuminating one corridor at a time. The deeper they went, the more they began to understand why so many stories surrounded this vessel. Its walls were lined with engravings, not etched by machines but carved by hand. Names, coordinates, battle dates. Each one a memory, each one a life lost in the wars Earth once fought. The medic stopped, brushing her fingers over one of the engravings. "These are soldiers' names," she said softly. "The ones who never made it home." The captain nodded. The Immortal was their tomb, and maybe their protector. But something about that didn't sit right. The energy pulsing through the walls felt alive, like the ship wasn't built to die with its crew, but to carry them somewhere beyond death. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the reappearance of the Black Ship had thrown humanity's fragile order into chaos. Every major power had sent fleets toward the rift, each hoping to reach the Immortal first. Intelligence networks buzzed with theories. Was this truly Earth's fury returned from the dead, or had something or someone learned to mimic him? In the Grand Council chamber of the Terran Union, the Chancellor stood before a circle of holographic delegates. "We cannot allow that ship to fall into private hands," she said, her voice sharp. "The last time Earth's fury commanded a fleet, half the colonies burned. If he's back, we must know what he wants before he acts." An older delegate leaned forward. "And if he isn't human anymore?" No one answered. Back aboard the Immortal, the crew found themselves drawn toward the central core, a towering chamber filled with shifting light. The energy field pulsed with rhythm, echoing the steady heartbeat of the ship. There, suspended in the center, was a crystalline sphere, slowly rotating. Inside it, faint outlines of continents flickered, as if the ship held a memory of Earth itself. The captain approached it cautiously. "Is this the power source?" A voice echoed around them, calm and deep, the same one that had spoken before. "It is the heart of Earth's legacy," it said, "the code of what we once were." The crew froze. The voice wasn't coming from any speaker. It was all around them, woven into the walls, the lights, the hum. The captain turned slowly, his voice steady but uncertain. "You said the war isn't over. What war are you talking about? Humanity's united now. There's peace." "Peace built on forgetting," the voice replied. "You think the wars ended because you stopped fighting, but the truth was buried, not erased. The same power that destroyed your world once sleeps beneath your new colonies. You've only delayed what's coming." The mechanic whispered under her breath. "You're saying we didn't win?" The voice paused. "You survived. That is not the same." The captain tried to steady his thoughts, but the more he listened, the more uneasy he became. The ship's words weren't random. They were precise, deliberate, as if it remembered every event that led to humanity's near extinction. He took a slow breath. "And what do you want from us?" The lights dimmed, then flared bright again. "To finish what was started, to awaken what still sleeps beneath the ashes of Earth." The crew exchanged tense looks. None of them understood what that meant, but they all felt the same cold dread settling in. Whatever the Black Ship had been built for, it wasn't meant to simply explore or defend. It was meant to fight. Hours passed as they tried to uncover more about the ship. Every room they entered revealed something new: massive archives of lost history, maps of forgotten colonies, even recordings from the final days of Earth before the Exodus. The voices of long-dead soldiers played faintly through the speakers, recounting their final missions, their loyalty to Earth's fury, and their faith that one day he would rise again. In one of the recordings, a weary voice spoke directly into the camera. "If this ship is ever found, it means the cycle is beginning again. The Immortal was never meant to rest. It was meant to remember." The captain replayed that message 3 times before turning away. "Cycle of what?" he whispered. Before anyone could answer, the floor beneath them vibrated. Systems across the ship came online at once, lights flickering in patterns that formed coordinates across the star map. The crew rushed to the bridge, where the central screen displayed a single location, an uncharted planet near the edge of known space. The mechanic frowned. "What's on that world?" The voice returned, quieter this time. "The first battlefield. The place where it all began." The captain studied the coordinates, torn between curiosity and fear. Every instinct told him to turn back, to leave the ship and never look back. But something about the way the ship had found them, about the way it spoke, felt personal. It wasn't random that his crew had been the ones to answer that signal. "Set a course," he said finally. "Let's see what Earth's fury wants us to find." The engines roared to life again, and the stars shifted as the Immortal began to move, gliding through the void with eerie silence. As they entered the new coordinates, the captain noticed the walls pulsing again, faint shapes appearing like shadows trapped behind the metal. He couldn't tell if they were memories or something else. The mechanic broke the silence. "Do you think he's really alive? The original commander?" The captain hesitated before answering. "If he is, he's not the same man anymore." She nodded slowly, her eyes distant. "Then what's he become?" Outside, the stars blurred as the ship entered hyperspace. The hum grew louder, more rhythmic, almost like breathing. Somewhere deep in the vessel, machinery stirred, systems that hadn't moved in 100 years. The Immortal was preparing for something, and as the captain stared out at the dark, he couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't heading toward a destination. They were heading toward a beginning, one humanity had tried to bury long ago. Behind him, the console flickered, displaying an old symbol, the insignia of Earth's fury. Beneath it, a single line of text appeared, written in the old Terran language. "When the Immortal wakes, the lost war begins anew." The captain felt a chill run through him. Whatever waited ahead wasn't just a mystery, it was a reckoning. And somewhere within the ship's heart, he could almost hear a faint whisper. Not from the fury, but from the ship itself. It said, "Remember." And then, just as suddenly, the stars ahead flickered and vanished. The ship dropped out of hyperspace, surrounded by silence once again. In the distance, a planet loomed, scarred, gray, and lifeless. Yet beneath its surface, something was pulsing with light. The Immortal had found what it was looking for, and the crew knew deep down that whatever was buried there was never meant to be unearthed. The planet below was gray and silent, its surface covered in endless fields of stone and ash. No atmosphere shimmered, no signs of life flickered on the scanners, yet the sensors kept picking up a rhythmic pulse beneath the crust, like a heartbeat echoing from underground. The black ship hung in orbit above it, engines humming low, as if waiting for something unseen to happen. The captain stood by the viewport, his reflection faint against the dark glass. The others gathered behind him, each tense in their own way. The mechanic's fingers tapped nervously against her data pad. The medic kept glancing at the scanners, and the youngest crewman, a quiet navigator, just stared at the planet, eyes wide. "It's not just rock down there," the medic finally said. "There's structure, something buried deep under the crust. It's giving off energy, but I can't tell if it's natural or artificial." The captain's voice was low. "The ship wants us to go down." The mechanic turned sharply. "Wants us to? You make it sound like it's thinking for itself." He looked back at her. "You've been inside this thing for hours. Tell me it's not." Before anyone could reply, the voice of Earth's fury filled the room again, steady, echoing, calm. "The first war began here. This world holds the memory of what was lost. You must see it for yourselves." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. None of them wanted to admit it, but every time the ship spoke, it felt impossible to disobey. Something about that voice carried weight, a tone that bypassed logic and struck deep in the gut. Moments later, their shuttle descended through the thin layer of atmosphere, its hull glowing faintly from friction. The surface looked like a graveyard, black ridges rising from the ash, broken towers leaning at impossible angles, the remnants of something ancient. As they landed, dust rose around them in slow spirals, and the hum from below grew stronger. The captain led the way, scanning the terrain. The air was thin but breathable, and the silence pressed in from every direction. The ground was warm beneath their boots, vibrating faintly as if the planet itself were alive. They followed the signal toward a valley where the rocks formed strange, repeating patterns. It didn't take long to realize they weren't natural. They were the tops of buried structures, old and massive. At the edge of the valley stood a black monolith, half buried and cracked with age. The same insignia as the black ship was faintly visible on its surface, the mark of Earth's fury. The mechanic crouched beside it, brushing away dust. "This can't be from the same time as the Immortal," she said quietly. "This is older, centuries older." The medic frowned. How could something from Earth's command be older than Earth's fleet? Before anyone could answer, the ground trembled. The pulse grew louder, and light began to spread from the cracks in the monolith. The crew stepped back, shielding their eyes as the light climbed upward in spiraling lines until it formed a hovering projection, a battlefield frozen in time. They saw soldiers in armor they didn't recognize, ships burning in the sky, and something massive descending from orbit. It wasn't alien, but it wasn't human either. Some kind of hybrid machine built from both. The scene flickered like an old memory, playing in silence until it faded back into the stone. The captain stood frozen. That wasn't one of our wars." "No," said the mechanic, "but the Immortal knew about it. It brought us here for a reason." The medic looked at her scanner. "The signal's spreading. Whatever we just triggered, it's broadcasting across the planet." Back in orbit, aboard the black ship, lights flared across the main deck. Systems reactivated one by one as if the vessel was responding to the surface activity. Energy readings spiked, and a faint hum began to echo through space. Far away, deep in the Terran Union's central hub, their sensors detected the surge. In a secure command center, the Chancellor watched the readings with a grim expression. "They found it," she said. "The Immortals activated something." A military officer beside her frowned. "Should we recall the fleets?" She shook her head. "No. If that ship's awakening what I think it is, there's no stopping it. Prepare the intercept group. We need to reach that planet before the others do." 3 other factions were already on the move: corporate fleets, mercenary armadas, and independent colonies hoping to seize whatever power the Immortal guarded. Each one believed the ship carried the key to controlling the future of humanity. None of them understood that it might instead awaken the past. Down on the planet, the crew reached what looked like a large circular gate embedded in the ground. The light from the monolith had activated it, revealing a pattern of runes and shifting metal plates. The captain ran his hand along the edge. "It's some kind of entrance, but to what?" The voice of Earth's fury returned, softer now, as if distant. "Beneath this surface lies the first command, the beginning of every fleet that ever sailed under Earth's banner. But the price of that legacy was never paid in full." The mechanic glanced at him. "What does that mean?" "The Immortal wasn't just a ship," the voice continued. "It was a vault, for memory, for consciousness, for command. When Earth fell, I took what remained and buried it here, waiting for those who would remember." The captain stepped closer to the gate. "You're saying you preserved minds? People?" There was a pause. "Leaders, warriors, voices that carried the will of Earth. They sleep beneath this world, bound to the code that kept humanity alive." The medic looked at the captain uneasily. He's talking about digital consciousness, uploaded memories. That's old tech, banned tech. No one's used it since the Exodus. The captain didn't move. If he really did that, then what's down there isn't just history. It's the command structure of the old fleet. The gate began to open, grinding slowly apart, dust and light spilling out as the inner chamber revealed itself. The air shimmered with static energy, and the faint sound of voices drifted up, 1,000 whispers overlapping, like echoes of long-forgotten orders. The mechanic's voice trembled. "Are we waking them up?" The captain didn't answer. He stared into the glowing chamber below, the light reflecting in his eyes. Maybe they were never asleep. The hum grew louder again, not just from the planet, but from above, the black ship itself. Systems were syncing, linking, reacting to the opening gate. The connection between the Immortal and the buried structure was complete. Meanwhile, high above, multiple fleets began to arrive, dropping out of warp one after another. The dark sky lit up with engine trails and flashing beacons. Each force claimed the right to investigate the planet, but none were willing to trust the others. What began as a discovery was now becoming the spark of another conflict. Inside the Immortal, automated systems activated defense grids. The ship was preparing for confrontation, its ancient programming ready to defend whatever was hidden below. The captain's crew didn't know it yet, but they were standing at the center of a storm building across human space. The medic's voice broke the silence. "Captain, if these voices are real, if they're the minds of Earth's old commanders, then what happens when they wake?" He turned toward her slowly. "Then Earth's fury won't be the only one who returns." As the gate's final layers unlocked, a blinding light surged upward, swallowing everything around them. The captain shielded his eyes, but through the glare he saw movement, shapes emerging from within, like figures walking out of memory itself. And above, the black ship roared to life completely, its engines burning bright as signals rippled through space. Every fleet that had come for it received the same message, broadcast in the ancient Terran language. "War is the constant of memory. The Immortal does not yield." The captain's last thought before the world turned white was simple but chilling. Whatever they had uncovered on this planet wasn't just a weapon, it was a reminder. And reminders have a way of becoming wars. Light and sound collided as the chamber erupted in a surge of energy, throwing the crew backward. The ground trembled beneath them, and the air filled with static that burned against their skin. For a few seconds, everything was chaos. Then, the light began to settle, revealing shapes moving within the heart of the glowing vault. The captain pushed himself up, squinting through the haze. What he saw didn't seem possible. Figures stood in the mist, half-formed, like shadows given shape by light. Their faces were familiar and unfamiliar all at once. Soldiers, commanders, engineers, all wearing the insignia of Earth's first fleets. The mechanic's voice shook. "They're not real, are they?" The captain couldn't answer. The figures looked solid enough to touch, but their movements were too smooth, too deliberate. Their eyes glowed faintly, mirroring the same eerie light that pulsed from the Immortal. The voice of Earth's fury echoed through the chamber once more, calm and unyielding. "The guardians of Earth's legacy awaken. Their duty remains unfinished." One of the figures stepped forward. It spoke in perfect unison with the Fury's voice. "The memory of Earth cannot fade. Those who inherited her strength must continue her purpose." The captain took a slow breath, fighting the growing sense of dread. "And what is that purpose?" "To unite humanity through war," the voice replied. The words hung heavy in the air. The mechanic stared in disbelief. "War? That's your answer? After everything humanity went through, you want to start it again?" "There is no peace without balance," said the voice. "You built your unity on silence and denial. But truth demands remembrance, and remembrance demands conflict." The captain shook his head. "We're not your soldiers. Whatever you were fighting for, It's over. The ground shook again, more violently this time. The buried city around them began to awaken, massive machines rising from beneath the ash. Towers of metal unfolded from the ground like giants stretching after centuries of sleep. Their movements were mechanical but graceful. Ancient war constructs designed for a kind of battle humanity had long forgotten. Above, the fleets orbiting the planet began to panic. The energy surge from the surface blinded sensors and jammed communications. The Terran Union fleet tried to maintain formation, but their systems flickered as the Immortal's defenses activated. Energy barriers spread outward, cutting off access to the planet below. The Immortal was no longer waiting. It was defending. On board the flagship Resolute, Admiral Kira watched the readings with growing alarm. "The Black ship's raising shields around the entire sector," she said. "We're locked out." Her second-in-command frowned. "If it's protecting something, that means it's alive again. Do we engage?" Kira hesitated. Every instinct screamed to attack, but she had studied Earth's fury during her academy years. She knew that ship's power. Engaging it blindly would mean suicide. "Not yet," she said quietly. "We wait. The Immortal always strikes first." Back on the surface, the captain and his crew ran toward the edge of the valley as the ground split open behind them. The machines continued to rise, some towering hundreds of meters high. They weren't attacking yet, but their presence alone was enough to make the air hum with tension. The medic gasped as she stumbled to keep up. "Captain, look!" High above, the black ship began to descend through the clouds. Its engines roared with deep thunder, shaking the ground. It wasn't crashing. It was landing. The crew stopped and turned, watching in awe as the colossal ship settled into the valley, the earth buckling beneath its weight. Dust and debris spiraled into the air, turning the world around them into a storm of shadow and light. The mechanic spoke softly, almost to herself. "It's coming home." As the Immortal's massive hangar doors opened, beams of light cut through the haze. Inside, silhouettes moved, drones, mechanical sentinels, and shapes that looked eerily human. The captain could hear the voice of Earth's fury again, stronger than before, almost resonant with the pulse of the ship. "The awakening has begun. The fleets are gathering. You must choose your place in what comes next." He clenched his fists. "You talk about choice, but you're forcing a war. You're turning memories into weapons." The Fury's voice softened, but it carried an edge that sent chills down his spine. "Every war begins with a choice. You can stand beside Earth's legacy, or you can be swept aside by it." The ground beneath them cracked open, revealing long corridors leading deep into the planet's core. From within, a faint blue light shone, growing brighter by the second. The medic looked down, scanning it. "Captain, that's energy on a scale I've never seen. It's spreading through the crust. If it keeps growing, it could destabilize the planet." The captain's heart pounded. He's not just waking soldiers. He's waking the whole world. Meanwhile, in orbit, the surrounding fleets started to move. The Terran Union's ships aligned into battle formation, while corporate and mercenary fleets closed in, desperate to gain control of the situation. Every commander wanted the same thing: the Black Ship. It was a symbol of ultimate power, and no one intended to let it slip away. Inside the Immortal, Earth's Fury watched the chaos unfold through the ship's central core. His form flickered between human and light, a merging of consciousness and machine. Around him, the ship's AI systems pulsed in sync with his presence. "They come again," he said softly. "Just as before." He turned toward the holographic projections of his commanders, the digital echoes of those who had fought under him long ago. "Prepare for engagement, but this time, no world will burn alone." The ship's systems responded instantly. Its hull began to glow faintly, absorbing the surrounding energy, pulling power from the planet below. The fleets above detected the surge and panicked. On the Resolute, alarms blared. "Admiral, the Immortal's powering its primary cannon," Kira gritted her teeth. "Evasive pattern Gamma. Keep distance. Do not engage directly. We don't know what it's capable of yet." Back on the surface, the captain's crew found temporary shelter inside one of the ancient structures, the walls vibrating as the planet shook. The mechanic looked at her readings. "Whatever's happening, it's not just energy buildup, it's coordination. The machines on the surface are aligning with the Immortal's systems." The medic added, "It's merging the old network. This entire planet is one massive control hub." The captain stared out the shattered doorway, where the glow of the Immortal lit the sky. If he completes the link, he'll have control over every automated system left from the old wars. That's not just one army, it's thousands. The mechanic's voice cracked. "Then we have to stop it." He turned to her, his face hard. "Stop it? How? That ship's older than anything we understand. Every move it makes feels planned." She looked at him desperately. "Then we have to find something it didn't plan." For a moment, there was silence between them. Then the medic spoke. "There's one place we haven't checked, the Immortal's memory core. If Earth's fury still exists as data, that's where he's controlling everything from." The captain nodded slowly. "If we can reach it, maybe we can shut him down." They prepared quickly, knowing time was running out. Outside, the planet roared as fissures split across the surface, and lightning tore through the sky. The Immortal's engines burned brighter, its systems connecting with the buried network. Above, the fleets started firing, beams of light streaking through the dark, but most shots simply vanished against the black ship's shields. The ground trembled with each impact. The captain and his crew ran toward the rising structure that connected to the Immortal's landing site, their suits sparking with static as the magnetic field thickened. Every step felt heavier, as if the air itself was trying to hold them back. When they finally reached the hangar, the gates were already open. Inside, drones moved in precise formation, carrying containers and components toward the core. The hum was deafening now, a steady rhythm that matched the beating of their hearts. The mechanic whispered, "It's like the ship's alive." The captain's gaze hardened. "No, it's remembering." They moved deeper, following the glowing path toward the heart of the ship. Every corridor flickered with holograms of past battles, Earth's final defense, the fall of the colonies, the first time the Immortal went dark. Each image reminded them that this ship had seen everything humanity had done to survive. As they reached the core chamber, they stopped. The center of the room was filled with light so intense it was almost blinding. Inside that glow stood Earth's Fury, his form now more luminous than human. His voice echoed through the room, calm and steady. "You shouldn't have come here." The captain took a step forward. "You can't bring the past back. It'll destroy everything." The Fury's eyes flared. "Then everything deserves to burn." The hum reached a fever pitch, and the ship shuddered violently. Outside, the fleets broke formation, chaos spreading across the stars. The Immortal's primary cannon charged, its light cutting through the blackness of space. The captain looked around the glowing core, searching desperately for a way to stop it. But before he could act, the Fury raised his hand, and the light swallowed everything. The war of memory had begun. The light consumed everything, white, endless, and roaring. Then, as suddenly as it began, it faded. The captain blinked through the haze, his ears ringing. The world around him was no longer the metallic core of the black ship, but a vast open field beneath a gray sky. The air was still and cold, the ground cracked like dried clay. He turned in confusion, his heart racing. The rest of his crew was there too, scattered nearby, each one disoriented and speechless. "What happened?" the mechanic whispered, holding her head. "Where are we?" The captain scanned the horizon. There were no stars, no ships, just a faint line of broken towers stretching in the distance. "This isn't the ship," he said. "It's something else." A faint hum echoed through the air, familiar, steady. He froze. It was the same rhythm as the Immortal's pulse, but now it was everywhere, like the heartbeat of the world itself. The medic crouched down, running a hand through the dry earth. "This place feels wrong. It's too still, like time isn't moving." Before anyone could respond, a ripple of light moved across the sky, forming a familiar silhouette, Earth's Fury. But this time his form was clearer, more human, and he wasn't glowing like before. He stood just a few paces away, calm and steady, as if waiting for them. "This is the memory," he said quietly. "The heart of the Immortal. You're not in space anymore. You're inside the ship's mind." The crew stared at him in disbelief. The mechanic shook her head. "That's impossible." The Fury met her eyes. "The Immortal is more than metal and circuits. It remembers. It preserves every decision, every life, every battle. You triggered the core. Now you stand within the memory that built it." The captain's pulse quickened. "If this is the ship's mind, then that means it's showing us something. Why? What are you trying to make us see?" The Fury turned, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the broken towers began to flicker with faint light. "You think the war ended when the guns fell silent? You're wrong. The truth of Earth's fall was never recorded in your history. You've built your peace on a lie." The ground trembled. The gray sky darkened, and distant shapes began to move, silhouettes of warships descending from the clouds, massive and silent. At first, they looked like the enemy fleets from old archives, but as the light struck them, the captain's breath caught. They were human ships, Earth's own. The medic whispered, "We destroyed ourselves." The Fury nodded slowly. There was no alien invasion, no outside threat. The war of silence began when humanity turned its weapons inward. To survive, the Immortal was tasked to erase the truth, to rewrite the story so the survivors would have something to believe in. But the cost was memory itself. Everything you are now is built from that erasure. The captain's chest tightened. "You're saying you lied to everyone. You rewrote history." "I preserved humanity," the Fury replied, his tone steady. "The truth would have destroyed what was left. But lies cannot hold forever. The code that buried the past is breaking, and when it does, every world will remember what it was forced to forget." The mechanic took a shaky breath. "Then this activation, this awakening, it's not just about war. The ship's trying to make humanity remember what it did." The Fury's expression didn't change. "Remembrance comes with consequence. The Immortal doesn't just hold history, it holds judgment." The ground split open beneath them, glowing lines of energy racing toward the horizon. The broken towers began to reform piece by piece until they became shining spires of metal and glass. In moments, the field transformed into a city, Earth's last city, preserved in perfect detail. The captain stepped forward, staring at the skyline. "This is before the fall." The Fury turned to him. "Watch!" They saw people in the streets, soldiers in armor, banners flying high with the insignia of the Terran Union. For a moment, it looked like peace. But then, the sky tore open with fire. Ships rained down from orbit, striking the city with thunderous force. The crew flinched as explosions ripped through the towers, scattering debris into the wind. The Fury stood unmoving as the city burned. "This was the first strike," he said. "The day Earth's fleets turned on their own world. Commanders like me were ordered to respond, to fight against our own. We refused at first, but when the network broke down, chaos followed. There was no enemy left to blame, only ourselves." The medic's voice cracked. "So all the stories, all the records, they're fake?" "Not fake," the Fury said softly. "Filtered. Cleaned. History was rewritten so the survivors could start again." The captain clenched his fists. "You erased billions of lives for a lie." "I preserved the chance for humanity to exist," the Fury replied. "You can judge me, but without the Immortal, there would have been no future, only ashes." Before the captain could respond, the ground shook violently again. The scene around them began to fracture, the city shattering into shards of light. The Fury looked up sharply. "The fleets outside are trying to breach the Immortal's core. They're forcing a link into the system. If they succeed, they'll access the ship's entire archive and release everything I buried." The medic looked around as cracks spread through the ground. "What happens if they do?" The Fury's expression hardened. "Then humanity will see the truth in every broadcast, every network, every ship. The lie will end, and the peace you built will fall with it." The captain turned to his crew. "We need to stop them." The Fury raised a hand. "You can't. Not from here. You're inside the memory, but the battle is already happening outside." Suddenly, the light twisted around them again, and the scene shattered completely. The crew fell backward, then landed hard on cold metal. They were back on the Immortal's deck, alarms blaring. The ship trembled as explosions rippled across its shields. The mechanic looked up at the screens. "They've breached the perimeter! Multiple fleets are firing!" The captain rushed to the console. "Can we cut them off?" "Not fast enough," she said. "They've already started linking to the ship's data systems. They're pulling everything. The archives, the hidden files, everything we saw down there." The medic's face went pale. "If that information spreads, every colony, every government will know the truth." The captain's voice was grim. "And every one of them will turn on the other." The Fury's voice returned, echoing through the ship. "The war will begin again, just as it was written. The Immortal's memory cannot be hidden anymore." But then something unexpected happened. Another voice joined his, a new one, distorted but human. "No, it can still change." The crew froze. The mechanic looked around. "Who was that?" The Fury's tone sharpened. "That voice should not exist." The lights flickered violently. Across the main display, a figure appeared. An old woman in faded Terran command uniform, her image grainy but clear. "Fury, you locked me out when you buried the truth," she said. "But the Immortal was built with more than your memory. It was built with mine, too." The Fury took a step back. "You were erased." "Not erased," she said softly. "Buried, just like the truth." The captain turned toward her projection. "Who are you?" She looked at him, her eyes filled with calm determination. "The one who ordered the Immortal to preserve humanity, not through war but through restraint. I created the fail-safe he never wanted you to find." The Fury's form flickered. "You cannot stop this. The awakening has begun." The woman's image steadied. "No, Fury. You forgot. Memory cuts both ways. If you can make humanity remember what it was, then I can make it remember what it could still be." The ship's systems began to shift. Energy flows changed direction. Across the hull, lights flickered from red to white. The Fury roared, his form destabilizing. "You'll destroy everything!" "No," she replied. "I'll give them back their choice." The Immortal shuddered violently, caught between two wills, one driving it toward destruction, the other toward redemption. The stars outside blurred as energy waves rippled outward, crashing into the fleets above. The captain clung to the railing as the ship buckled under the strain. The mechanic shouted over the noise, "What's happening?" He stared at the light swallowing the control deck, his voice barely a whisper. "The Immortal's fighting itself." Outside, the black ship glowed brighter than ever, its energy spilling across the sky like dawn breaking in space. Every system in the sector flickered, every fleet halted mid-battle, their sensors flooded with light. The Fury screamed one last command. "If the truth cannot be buried, then let it all burn." The ship's core detonated with a surge of impossible light, and the world turned white once more. The white light faded slowly, leaving behind a silence so deep it felt endless. The crew lay scattered across the command deck, breathing heavily, their vision blurred. The captain was the first to move. He forced himself upright, gripping the railing for balance as the last traces of the explosion dissolved into faint light drifting through the air. The ship was still there, somehow intact, but the air felt different, quieter, alive. He looked toward the main console. The systems were rebooting, flickering between codes and symbols none of them had seen before. The mechanic stirred beside him, coughing. "We're still here," she said weakly. "How is that possible?" The medic scanned the panels, eyes wide. "All the energy signatures, they're stabilizing, but the Fury's presence..." She paused. "It's gone." The captain frowned. "Gone?" Before she could answer, a low hum filled the room, deep and steady, like a heartbeat. The air shimmered again, and the woman in the faded command uniform reappeared, no longer a grainy hologram, but solid, almost human. "He's not gone," she said quietly. "He's fading, but not gone." The crew turned to her. The captain stepped forward cautiously. "You stopped him, didn't you? You saved the ship." "I redirected it," she said. "The Immortal wasn't meant to destroy. It was meant to preserve. But Fury became too attached to the past. He believed humanity could only learn through punishment." The captain's voice was heavy. "And you believed otherwise?" She nodded. "I believed memory should guide, not control." The mechanic looked at the glowing walls around them. "So, what now? Are we free?" The woman hesitated, then looked up. "Not yet. The truth has already been released. The fleets above have seen what humanity did. They know the war was their own." The captain turned to the viewport. Through the faint haze, he could see the distant shapes of ships still hovering in orbit. Their lights flickered, their weapons cold. For the first time, no one was firing. "They're not fighting anymore," the medic whispered. "They don't know what to do." The captain's gaze hardened. "They're waiting. For us." The woman's form flickered slightly, her voice softer now. "The Immortal is no longer under one command. Its memory is yours to guide, but you must choose how it ends. Do you rebuild on the truth, or erase it again?" The captain didn't answer immediately. He looked at his crew, each one battered, exhausted, but alive. He thought of the billions who would soon see the truth, of worlds built on lies that were now exposed. "If we erase it again," he said slowly, "we become no different than Fury. But if we let it spread..." The mechanic finished his thought. "Everything could collapse." Silence stretched between them. The woman watched him carefully. "The Immortal's systems can either restore the veil or release the full archive to every world. Once the choice is made, it cannot be undone." The captain closed his eyes. He remembered the faces of those who died, the voices that once cried out in the name of survival. Maybe truth was painful, but without it, humanity would always repeat its mistakes. "No more lies," he said finally. "Let them see it all." The woman nodded once. "Then so be it." She turned toward the console, placing her hand on the core interface. The entire ship trembled as waves of light surged through its systems. The stars outside flared brightly, and a pulse of energy spread outward, faster than light, reaching every fleet, every world. Across the galaxy, truth awakened. Memories buried for centuries resurfaced in an instant. Images of Earth's self-destruction, voices of leaders who had betrayed their people, the desperate final orders to rewrite history. Everywhere, people watched the same vision, the story they had always believed shattered before their eyes. But in the center of it all, something else stirred. A whisper deep within the ship's core. The lights dimmed. The woman froze, her expression suddenly tense. No, this can't be right. The captain turned sharply. What's wrong? She backed away from the console. He's still here. The Fury's voice rose through the intercom, distorted and fragmented, but unmistakably alive. You think you can erase me? I am the Immortal's memory. As long as the truth exists, so do I. The captain's heart pounded. He's merged with the system. The woman's tone hardened. He's trying to take control again, using the archive as his host. If he succeeds, he'll twist the truth into something worse than the lie. The deck began to shake violently. Systems flickered red, warnings flaring across every screen. The Immortal's engines roared, pushing against the ship's own restraints. The Fury's laughter echoed through the halls. You gave them their truth, he said, his voice everywhere at once. Now let's see what they do with it. The mechanic gritted her teeth. We can shut him out. We just need to sever his access to the core. The woman nodded. If you disconnect the ship's memory network, you'll cut him off completely. But you'll also destroy every record we've just released. The captain hesitated. If we keep the truth, we keep him. If we destroy it, we erase everything. The medic looked at him, desperate. Captain, what's worse, living in a lie or watching it consume us? He didn't answer. The hum of the ship grew louder, almost like a heartbeat gone mad. Then he stepped forward, his face calm. We find a middle path. The mechanic blinked. What do you mean? He turned to the woman. If the Immortal can rewrite memory once, it can rewrite again. But this time, not to hide, to protect. We isolate the truth in fragments, send them out as signals. Let humanity rediscover them over time, not as a single revelation, but as lessons. The woman's expression softened. A slow remembrance. He nodded. They'll rebuild with it, not break from it. For a moment, she looked at him like she saw something familiar, something from a long time ago. You understand now, she said quietly. That's what it was always meant for. She turned back to the console, her hand glowing as she initiated the override. The Fury's voice rose in fury, echoing through every corridor. You can't silence me. I am the will of humanity. The captain placed his hand beside hers, on the console. No, he said softly. You were its fear. The light surged one last time, and a deafening sound filled the ship. Then, everything went dark. When the systems came back online, the Fury's voice was gone. The woman stood motionless for a moment, then looked at them with a faint smile. It's done. The archive has been fragmented and sent across the stars. Humanity will find it again, when it's ready. The crew stood in silence. The mechanic wiped her eyes, half in relief, half in disbelief. What happens to us now? The woman's image began to fade. The Immortal's mission is complete. Its memory will rest. The captain reached out instinctively as if to stop her. Wait, who were you, really? She smiled faintly. The part of humanity that refused to forget. With that, she was gone. The crew sat quietly, the ship now silent except for the steady hum of life support. Outside, the stars were still, peaceful. The captain looked out the viewport at the distant fleets, ships once enemies now motionless in the same light. We gave them the truth, he murmured. Now it's their turn to decide what to do with it. The medic smiled weakly. Maybe that's what being human means, choosing what to remember. The mechanic leaned against the console, staring out at the stars. So what now? The captain looked at her, then at the dark void beyond. Now we rebuild. But just as he turned away, a faint sound echoed through the comms. A single pulse. Then another. The same rhythm as before, the same heartbeat. The mechanic frowned. "Captain, did you hear that?" He froze. The sound grew stronger, steady and familiar. It was coming from deep within the ship. The medic checked the scanners, her voice trembling. "There's a new signal. Not Fury, not the archive." The captain stared at the display as new symbols appeared. Fresh, uncorrupted code. It wasn't from the Immortal's old system. It was something new, growing, adapting. He whispered under his breath, half in awe, half in fear. "It's evolving." Outside, the black ship drifted silently through the stars. Then slowly, its engines flared to life once more, its hull glowing faintly with light. The Immortal had survived, but this time it was awake for a different reason. The engines of the black ship hummed like the slow heartbeat of something reborn. Outside, the stars drifted quietly, no longer interrupted by fleets or fire. The war was truly over, not because anyone had won, but because the truth had stripped every side of the illusion they were fighting for. For the first time in centuries, there was silence between the worlds. The captain stood on the observation deck, staring at the glowing trails of energy running along the ship's hull. The Immortal had survived the storm, the lies, and even the wrath of its own memory. Yet it felt different now, lighter, calmer, as though it had finally let go of its past. The ship that had once been built for war now floated in peace, a monument to everything humanity had been and everything it could still become. The mechanic approached quietly, wiping the soot and grease from her hands. "I rerouted the power grid," she said softly. "It's stable now. Whatever that new system is, it's not hostile." The captain nodded, but didn't look away from the stars. "It's adapting," he said. "Maybe it's learning from what we did. Or maybe it's just remembering differently." The medic joined them, her expression thoughtful. "The Fury's gone, but traces of his code are still inside. It's like the ship kept pieces of him, just not the parts that could harm anyone." "Maybe that's how it should be," the captain replied. "No one's ever entirely good or bad. The Immortal's just holding both truths now." They stood in silence for a while, watching the distant glimmers of light where the fleets had once been. Ships were still drifting in orbit. Some damaged, some dark. But no one was fighting anymore. The great war machines that had once filled the void now just hovered quietly, as if stunned by what they'd seen. The mechanic folded her arms. "You think they'll recover from it? From knowing the truth?" The captain gave a small, weary smile. "Truth never destroys by itself. It just changes what people build next. Maybe that's what humanity needed all along. A second chance to start honest." The medic leaned against the railing, her voice quiet. "It's strange, isn't it? All those centuries of stories, all the legends of alien wars and noble causes, and it was us all along." The captain's expression softened. "Maybe those legends kept people alive, but now they have something better than legends. They have the truth." The mechanic glanced up at the faint glow pulsing through the ceiling. "And what about us? What do we do now?" He took a deep breath. "We keep the Immortal moving. We chart the signals that were sent out. If those fragments of memory are scattered across the stars, someone has to make sure they're found. Slowly, carefully, by people who are ready." The medic nodded. "So we become the keepers of truth." He looked at her, a faint smile crossing his face. "No, not keepers, just guides. The truth doesn't belong to anyone anymore." The air shimmered suddenly, and for a brief moment, a flicker of light appeared at the center of the room. It wasn't the Fury, nor the woman who had helped them. It was something new, a faint silhouette, like a spark learning how to take form. The voice that came was calm and young, almost curious. "You saved me," it said. "But what am I now?" The captain stepped forward slowly. "You're what's left when both war and peace are stripped away. You're the memory of everything we've learned." The figure tilted its head. "Am I human?" The captain hesitated, then said quietly, "Maybe one day." The light pulsed softly, then dimmed again, merging back into the ship's glow. The mechanic stared at the spot where it had been. Was that the Immortal talking? Yes, the medic said. Or maybe just the part that's finally alive. For the first time, the captain felt something like peace. The ship wasn't just a weapon anymore. It was evolving, growing into something that could carry more than war. Maybe even hope. Days passed. They began to repair what they could, sending out quiet transmissions to the fleets above. Many ships responded. Some wanted to return to their colonies, others wanted to understand what they'd seen. There were questions, so many questions, but for once there was no hatred behind them, only the need to understand. The captain sent out a single message to every listening ear. The truth of Earth has been returned to its people. What you do with it will define what humanity becomes next. The mechanic watched the signal leave the ship, her eyes reflecting the glow of the stars. You think they'll listen? He smiled faintly. Maybe not today, but someday. The medic leaned beside him. It's strange to think the war's finally over. Not because someone surrendered, but because no one wanted to keep lying anymore. He nodded. That's how real peace begins. The ship drifted farther from the fleets, its engines guiding it toward deep space. The stars ahead looked brighter now, untouched by the shadows of war. The black ship Immortal, once feared as a ghost of destruction, had become something new, a messenger of truth, carrying fragments of memory across the endless night. On the final night before their long journey began, the crew gathered in the observation dome. The stars glimmered across the glass, countless and calm. The mechanic brought a small transmitter to the center console. "I've programmed a beacon," she said. "It'll carry a single signal wherever we go." The captain raised an eyebrow. "What kind of signal?" She smiled faintly. "A heartbeat. Just a reminder that we're still alive." The medic laughed softly. Fitting. The ship that once carried the heart of Earth's fury now carries its pulse of hope. They sat in silence for a long time, watching the stars move slowly around them. No one spoke of what came next. There was no need. The universe was open again, vast and waiting. The captain finally stood, resting his hand on the console. "Set a course," he said quietly. "Not for home? There's no home to go back to. Set it for the nearest uncharted sector, somewhere we can build again." The mechanic smiled. "A new beginning." "Exactly," he said. "One built on what we finally remember." As the engines flared to life, the ship moved forward, leaving behind the shattered remains of war and the fleets that had once filled the sky. The stars stretched into lines, and the Immortal vanished into the deep. Hours later, as the ship glided through the quiet, the medic noticed a faint rhythm coming from the console. "The beacon's active," she said. "Someone might hear it." The captain looked at the light blinking softly across the controls. "Good. Let them know the Immortal's still watching over them, not as a weapon, but as a witness." He turned to the viewport one last time, watching the endless sea of stars ahead. "Maybe that's what we were meant for all along," he said softly. "Not to fight, not to conquer, but to remember, and to make sure it never happens again." The mechanic leaned against the console beside him. "You think they'll ever forget again?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe. But next time, the truth won't be buried. It'll be waiting for them, scattered in the light." The ship sailed on, its engines humming a quiet, steady rhythm that echoed like a heartbeat across the void. The black ship Immortal, once a legend of fear, had become something else entirely. It carried no armies, no lies, no vengeance. Only the truth of what humanity had been, and the fragile, beautiful hope of what it could still become. And somewhere, deep within its core, that same soft pulse continued to beat, not as the sound of fury, but as the quiet song of remembrance. The stars whispered it back in silence, The war was over. The legend was reborn. Humanity's story was beginning again.